All right, welcome back, World History class. This is Unit 4, Video 3. We're going to go through China. This is the last video that you need to watch before your test. So there's 3 videos for Unit 4. All right, let's get into this. So at the heart of Eastern Asia is the land of China. In ancient days, the Chinese called their land the Middle Kingdom because they believed that China was in the center of the earth. Today, more people live in China than in any other country in the world. Nearly one-fifth of the world's population lives there. In land size, modern China is slightly smaller than the United States, but China's population is about 4 times greater. Geographically, the United States and China are very similar. They have similar mountain ranges, similar river structures, and similar deserts and just all sorts of things. Geographically, we are very similar. Grand Canyons, things like that. This is also one of the world's oldest civilizations. The earliest Chinese lived in the fertile valley of China's 2 major river systems, the Huanghe or the Yellow and the Yangtze River. In this respect, ancient China was similar to a lot of other early river valley civilizations. So, yet again, we see that China is an example of ribbon development. Now, let's remember our definition for ribbon development. Ribbon development is when societies set up shop next to rivers or railroads. And so we saw this in ancient times at the Tigris and Euphrates. People set up shop around those rivers. Also at the Nile with the Egyptian civilization. And we saw this in India as well with the Indus and Ganges rivers. So in every continent, you are going to see ribbon development when civilizations set up shop around rivers. But while other civilizations were conquered by hostile armies, China, during its early history, remained relatively free from the outside influences. China was rather isolated from other centers of civilization for many centuries. They had the Pacific Ocean on one side, they have the Himalayan mountains on the other side. They have the Gobi Desert protecting China from most foreign invasions and influences. And so, because of this, Chinese society remained virtually unchanged from ancient to modern times. Oh, sorry. Let's go ahead and look at what their social features look like. The family was and still is the center of life in Chinese society. Large families embrace many generations, including parents, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nephews, nieces, in-laws. Ancestors were also included in the Chinese concept of family. So many Chinese could trace their family history back hundreds of years. And it's still a major responsibility of every Chinese person was to bring honor to their family. One of the worst offenses a person could commit was a dishonor. And his ancestors, by bringing reproach on the family name, like dishonoring his ancestors and bringing reproach on the family name. So Mulan, even the Disney version, they did their research. They're not far off as far as the value system. Family is center and honor to your family is very important. Virtually every Chinese house contained an ancestral altar before which the family burned incense to the spirits of the dead. So, by caring for their family's graves and worshiping before these altars, the Chinese hope to receive blessing and guidance from their ancestral spirits. Ancestor worship is still the leading religion in China, because they're hoping to receive blessings and guidance from their ancestral spirits. The most noticeable feature when it comes to China's language is its tonal quality. So by varying the tone of voice on a particular syllable, the Chinese can convey more than one meaning. For example, um, ma may mean mother, a type of plant, horse, or to scold, depending on the pitch that you say M-A in. Communication is further complicated by the regional variations within spoken language. Chinese people from different regions often have trouble understanding each other. Although their spoken languages vary a lot, their actual written language um, is common. So traditional Chinese writing is not based on a simple alphabet like our English language is. It consists of some 65,000 characters that represent complete ideas, objects, and sounds. So, for instance, the word for good is a combination of the characters for girl and boy. A person has to memorize the characters in order to be able to read, a fact that makes reading and writing extremely difficult. Over the centuries, the vast majority of the Chinese people have been illiterate at times. Even the most literate Chinese know only about 4,000 characters. And it's a little wonder that those who master the written language have always been given a place of distinction in Chinese society. China has at times even been called the scholars' world because in most of their ancient civilizations, soldiers, priests, or merchants held prominent positions in society. But in China, no social group exceeded the influence of scholars. And that was because of this connection with an extremely hard language to learn how to write in. So, giving you a little context to their thinking patterns. Remember, language is the biggest vehicle of culture. So this is a clue into their culture and to the thinking process that they grow up in. So we need to look at their Chinese thought life, thoughts in life. Basically, we're looking at philosophy at this point. So there's two native philosophies that have greatly influenced Chinese life, Confucianism and Taoism. These systems of thought became the heart of China's religious beliefs and practices. So let's start with Confucianism. The hard name to say, Kyung Fu Tzu, is the most honored teacher in Chinese history. The Chinese call him the master, and today we know him as Confucius. Confucius grew up in poverty during a time of social and political unrest in China. Prior to obtaining his political office, he devoted his time to teaching. Confucius believed that a moral government would produce a moral society. He sought to train men who, by entering government service and through proper conduct, would bring about a moral society. His disciples recorded and expanded on his teachings and developed a system of ethics that became a major influence on Chinese culture. Fundamental to Confucius's teachings was his belief in five basic human relationships: father and son, elder and younger brothers, husband and wife, friend, and ruler and subject. Confucius believed that maintaining proper relationships in these five areas would bring harmony and order to society, and it also gave a hierarchical order. In addition, he placed great confidence in China's past, trusting it as the basis to guide human behavior. So they really value their past. Since right behavior was found in right relationships, Confucius concluded that the fundamental principle was what you do not want done to yourself, do not do it to others. Confucius recognized the impossibility of living up to this standard. He observed that it would be difficult to live up to this standard for an entire day. Thus, he rightly recognized that no one is truly good. Yet, because he did not believe in God, who will bring all things into judgment, Confucius counseled his disciples to simply do the best that they could. So, that's a bit on Confucianism. Now let's just touch on the surface of Taoism. This is the second in importance to the teachings of Confucius. According to Chinese legend, Lao Tzu taught that Tao, meaning the way, was the pervading force in nature. He encouraged men to find peace and happiness by living in harmony with nature. So, according to Taoists, teaching men can achieve this harmony by ceasing to strive for power, wealth, and learning. Instead, they should learn to live with the flow of the natural order. By living in harmony with nature, men can accomplish great things. Taoists illustrated this teaching with the example of water. They would say things like, there is nothing in the world more soft and weak than water. Yet for attacking things that are hard and strong, there is nothing that surpasses it. The soft overcomes the hard, the weak overcomes the strong. That's a famous Taoist saying. Confucianism became the guiding philosophy of China's educational, social, and political system. Taoism became the basis of mystical, magical, and superstitious elements of Chinese society. And in many ways, these two philosophical ideas conflict with one another. Confucianism promotes living an active life and fulfilling one's social obligations. And Taoism definitely favors a more passive lifestyle and attempts to free man from the busyness of responsibility. So, Confucianists were often striving to improve government laws and education, while Taoists were minimizing external authority and their involvement in society. And so, there's many points in Chinese history where the two clashed. Now, we are just ever so slightly touching on the two first dynasties. So, the Shang dynasty is one of the earliest known Chinese dynasties, and it was established along the Yellow River. The rulers of this dynasty united much of northern China, and archaeology has unearthed all sorts of fine examples of this age. There's a lot of bronze work and marble carvings from this era. Um, we've found Chinese writing inscribed on pieces of animal bone and tortoise shell. So this was the very first dynasty that we know about. Now, the Zhao dynasty um, would be right after the Shang dynasty. So the Zhao dynasty took over from the Shangs. There was definitely a fight there, and the Zhao won. And this period is often called the classical or formative age of Chinese history. So much of China's culture, such as family life, ancestral worship, the writing system, Confucianism, Taoism, thoughts, all of that became firmly established during the dynasty. And this is a section that you need to add notes. So Shang is first, Zhao is the classical or formative age. And they brought in things like irrigation to farming, and they introduced horseback riding. And the government under this dynasty was decentralized. So the rulers retained the ultimate authority, but they allowed their powerful nobility to have great freedom in ruling local territories. Um, However, that decentralization would eventually break out into rival states fighting. And that is where we will end in our notes. I hope this was helpful. Please make sure that you study for your test. All right, guys, have a great day.